Oh, hello world. I'm your host, Data Mining Mike, and on today's podcast, we're going to talk about how much should I expect to pay for wedding photos. Today, I have a digital photography expert, Nate Wisely. Nate is a top-notch wedding photographer with numerous years of experience. We cover things such as video editing platforms and digital marketing basics. I am highly confident at the end of this period of instruction, you'll be able to take what you've learned and apply it to your knowledge of wedding photos or business, and that's called value. And because of that, you should like this video. Remember that sharing is caring. Please leave comments because they improve ranking and add prominence. Subscribing is what winners do, but smashing the bell is what legends do. This channel breeds legends. But first, AI news. The IEEE has created a new eNose that may be a revolutionary new sensing system that can distinguish coffee aromas consistently. The eNoses are devices that assess gases to classify the nature of a substance. They are growing in popularity, used for things such as production of whiskey, real-time health assessments such as glucose levels, and identify when a crop is ready for harvesting. It's created using a new polymer called P.3, which is very sensitive to gases, smells, along with some machine learning algorithms or hierarchy of machine learning algorithms created to detect with 98% accuracy. I want you to start. How did you first get into digital photography?
Oh man, okay, so when I was younger, I started doing photography as an extension of the graphic design work I was doing. So I wanted more textures to work with, so I had picked up a small point and shoot camera, and I was just taking pictures of anything that I thought had an interesting texture. And then I'd take that, run it through Photoshop, process it, and, I think 18, 19 at the time, something like that. So I was just messing around and doing artistic stuff that I thought was cool. Fast forward a little bit, and I picked up my first DSLR. Man, I don't know what year it was, but it was a few years later, and was just focusing on doing landscape photography, dabbled in trying to do lightning, a lot of that stuff. And I was not interested in portraiture at all. But it was a fun little hobby that I did for a while. And throughout all of this, I'd been interested in film. So I was working on editing mostly. I didn't have gear to shoot a lot of my own stuff. But then you fast forward a little bit to, say, 2017. I was working for the city of Sierra Vista, and we had some video equipment. And as a marketing department, we weren't doing any video. So I talked to my boss. I said, hey, we've got this equipment. We've got all the editing software. I know how to do all this stuff. Why aren't we doing it? My boss was like, I just haven't had anyone on the team who had any interest in doing video. So we haven't done it. So I kind of took that over. As a city, we started doing video in 2017 and into 2018. And in 2018, I met up with a photographer. I partnered up with her, and I started doing wedding films with her under her brand, and moved into doing that full-time the end of 2018. So that's when I got real serious with my videography, and then photography was really an extension on that. So during that time, started doing portrait work, learned studio photography, the lighting, just all of that stuff. So that was, we opened up a studio together in the beginning of 2019, and then managed to run that through the pandemic. Shot a lot of elopements kind of on the down low when when things were all closed up and stuff. But yeah, so since that point, I've been doing photography and videography, specializing in weddings, and then also working with a lot of small businesses doing content for them.
Cool. So you got a studio?
Not anymore. Not anymore. That was back in Arizona. That photographer and I had some differences in opinion on some different things, and so we we split up with everything. And so I've been on my own, basically starting over since end of 2022. So I'm going on just over a year on just totally doing my own thing and
Being
starting
an
all that from
entrepreneur.
scratch. Yeah.
Good for you. The hustle's real. The grind is real.
The grind is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you moved here from Arizona.
Yeah, not directly.
Okay.
I actually went back to Wisconsin for a little while. Spent this past summer, I spent out there. I had I've got family out there still, and then I've got some wedding industry contacts. So I spent that summer mostly shooting with other people. So I got to work with a lot of other videographers and just kind of got a chance to see how some other people have their setups, work on a lot of different kinds of weddings. I shot a lot of Indian weddings out there, which is a blast, but they're also very niche, so they're kind of hard to get into. A lot of them are multi-day things. There's a lot of tradition there. So, and that's usually something where if someone's like, okay, well, I'm doing this traditional Indian wedding. I see you're a videographer. Have you ever done this before? And if you're like, well, no, I really haven't, then they're like, okay, well, I want to trust, I don't want to try someone it's going to be their first time. So I was able to get a lot of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that demographic is like out here necessarily, but since I do travel for a lot of stuff, that helped me. Now, instead of just having contacts in Arizona, I've got contacts in Arizona, and I got contacts in Chicago, which are both pretty big wedding markets. And then now, my local weddings will be here, but I'll still travel a lot for those clients.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, so what brought you to Spokane?
My wife.
Okay, so
Yeah.
is she a local?
She's been she's been out here for, I want to say 7-8 years, maybe a little longer than, maybe 9.
Mm-hmm.
She's been out here for a while, and we met over a decade ago at this point, back in Arizona, before she moved out here. So we've known each other for a long time, and we reconnected recently, and she was like, hey, come out here. And yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, Washington's a gorgeous state, but I was like, I don't know anyone. I don't have any sort of like business contacts out there or anything. And she had come and stayed with me in Wisconsin for a bit. And then I came out here with her last fall, only a few months ago, actually, in mid-October. And she had some stuff she had to take care of, so I came out here. We were going to be out here for a month. And then I, really just fell in love with the place. The people I've met were incredible. And I was like, all right, you win.
Wait, how long have you been here?
Since October.
Since October.
Yeah,
so a month. So a few months.
Yeah,
now.
a few months. It was tough because I wasn't planning at the time. I wasn't planning on relocating out here, so I didn't do any of the things that I would normally do if I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be moving out there, so I need to start contacting people and making some of those connections. And so it was like, oh, well, October, and then we were in the holidays, and so it's been a little bit slow going. But now we're in January, and things are definitely starting to go pretty nicely. I'm meeting a lot of people. Met you.
Thanks. Yeah.
And great community of people out here. Just really fantastic.
Yeah, it's different. It's not like other bigger cities. Mm-hmm. And I know, been in Glendale, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that shit's rough, man. Jesus, you wouldn't think that Arizona would be so damn rough.
No, that's the West Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so all my time in the Phoenix area was in the East Valley. So I lived in Gilbert most of that time. And yeah, I generally stay out of the West Valley as much as possible, Glenn. I mean, that's really where the sketchier areas are, like West Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Glendale's not great. Yeah, that whole that whole area. It's not fun.
Yeah, I got family down in Waddell. It's a little town outside of Glendale. It's like it's literally in the county. It's a little town, but it's really close.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm sure I've been around there.
Well,
I've been all over that
but I love Arizona sunrises. I remember my first experience with the Arizona sunrise was when I was in the Marines. We were training. We went to Yuma, Arizona, to go Yuma Proving Grounds, and we go down there. We fly in, and it was cool because you could shoot in any direction, and it didn't matter. And we just set up ranges and just shot mortars and hung out there in the desert for about a little over a week. But I remember seeing the sunrise in the morning, like looking up and seeing the beautiful purple. I'm like, wow, this looks just like the state flag. And I've never been anywhere else that looks just like the state flag. And even there in just running around Waddell, just running in the morning, I loved seeing that sunrise. It's breathtaking.
The sunrises and sunsets in Arizona are they're just unreal.
Unreal. They are.
Yeah. Just
it's gorgeous.
Some of the colors that you get, you just. I mean, I had days where sun would be setting and it would just be this vibrant, like neon pink color, and the color is so intense that inside my house everything is tinted with that same shade of pink. So my whole house would just have this pink hue to everything. And they're just, it's unlike anything. I mean, I'd argue anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that. I've been to I've been around the world 3 times. I've been to numerous deserts, and I've never seen anything like Arizona's.
No.
And then went up to Sedona. That was beautiful. Holy shit, man. That looks like a great place to. And when I was there, it was snow. It had snowed. There was snow on the ground, so it was particularly gorgeous. Yeah, you have the contrast with the red rocks, and you got those green kind of scrubby pines, and then the snow scattering. Yeah, I shot an engagement session up there. I did a short video for a couple whose wedding I was doing, and we got them in the snow with the red rocks, and it was gorgeous. Yeah, one of my cousins got married in Sedona. That's like the place to get married, dude. That's a freaking phenomenal place. Yeah. So thinking back, if I was you and I wanted to do weddings and you want to get into the Indian market, you should hang out around Manitou Park. Okay. Yeah, because during the wedding season, but you want to get there now because the Indian community, I found when I go to Manitou Park, and I would it's easier if you have kids though. Sure. And you go to the kid play area and you let your kids play, and then you talk with all the other parents that are hanging around. A lot of them are Indian. Oh, okay. Yeah. And so, because they're just more active, they're more outdoorsy, and that's their culture is they'll take the kids to the park. So you can find that culture hanging out there in Manitou Park at the kids' toys. And you can talk with them and try to get into the whole photography deal. Plus, Manitou Park it's gorgeous. Another place. I love Manitou Park. Yeah, where they're doing the wedding. So just wait till the flowers come up. But you should. That's where you're going to find the Indian population is there, in that area. Also, my sister Samantha, I could hook you up with trying to get some business up there in Omi Gardens. There is this
Where's Omi Gardens? Tell me about that.
Omi Gardens in Wenatchee. It's in Wenatchee, Washington. But they have, like, when it's wedding season, every single day there's a wedding there. And that's all they do is they just man the garden. They're the ground staff. They run the whole thing. But there's a lot of people that go there. So
okay, cool.
That's a popular wedding venue. So I'll sling your information to her. But yeah. So what are your plans? So okay, no, let's talk about video.
Okay, yeah.
What video program do you use?
So my editor of choice is Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
I've been an Adobe user for I don't even know how long, honestly, at this point. I've been using Premiere for pretty close to 20 years, I'd say. But because I was doing graphic design, I learned Photoshop from a design standpoint, Illustrator, InDesign, all of those, and learned After Effects for motion graphics, and then all of that stuff plays into working with Premiere as well. So while there's some other tools that I really like, I love DaVinci Resolve, for instance.
I've used DaVinci Resolve because it's free.
It's free. For the basic version. Even if you get the paid version, it's not that expensive. I mean, that's
well, it's $250 for the paid version.
Yeah.
And compared to like $60 a month for Adobe. If that, I don't know if you're paying that.
Yep.
I don't pay for Adobe. I just go for what's free.
Yeah. If someone's just starting out, I highly recommend Resolve, which I feel bad because like I said, I love Adobe. I think they're an incredible company, and they've been doing some great stuff with their tools. Premiere's got all kinds of really neat things. They've got some fantastic audio tools for processing and cleaning up audio. It has definitely made my life a lot easier with their AI processing that they've got. I mean, mind-blowing stuff, right? But for the price point, number one, on Resolve, you can't beat free. The quality's there, and their color tools, the stuff that they've got for editing color, is unfortunately light years above what you've got in Premiere still. And Premiere's got some good stuff, but it seems like Adobe really sort of pulled back on that. They used to have a program called SpeedGrade, which was just a standalone color grading software, and they discontinued that, increased some of the tools in Premiere for color, but it's just not as robust as what you have in Resolve, unfortunately. I just haven't made the jump because I use all the other tools in the Adobe suite. So if you're also doing motion graphics, if you're also doing photography and photo editing, if you're doing all the other things that you need the suite for, then Premiere makes sense. If all you're doing is video, if that's your main thing, then, Resolve wins on that one. I've got a friend who had some problems with some glitchiness on some of his encoding when he was exporting videos, but that was probably 5 years ago that he was talking to me about that. So hopefully they've resolved that. I haven't had problems with exporting on it. My experience has been really good. The learning curve on color is pretty steep because those tools are really in depth. But if I was starting out from scratch right now, I'd go with Resolve.
Yeah. That's why I chose it. At first, I was using iMovie, which, man, that was tough. That was brutal. And then I go to DaVinci Resolve. My buddy Nick Allard turned me onto it, and he's like, "Yeah, use this," and it just makes so much sense. I can cut. I got a page for cutting, and I got a page for adding all the because it's got the Bada Boom font, which is the font I want. That's that cartoony font.
Okay.
And it has that, but it can only scroll up. I can't get the word to mouth to word thing. I think I'm gonna have to get some sort of plug-in for that.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that with Resolve because, again, I haven't dug in very deep on that. That's an area where Premiere is great for that because it's got some transcribing features. So it's really good at recognizing speech and then transcribing it so you have a full transcript of whatever your video is. And you're able to use that to create captions. And then you can also, from there, you can create those captions and animate them and do all that kind of stuff. And it's a pretty fast process. You know, the fine tuning to get it exactly how you want takes some time, but getting it set up initially is very short. I mean, we're talking less than 20 minutes. And I'm being pretty generous on the time. I don't want to give away too many of my secrets.
Yeah. Well, I think it seems like there's a couple things I want to do, and everybody keeps pointing me back to Adobe. I mean, one thing I want to do is increase my thumbnail quality and get those Mr. Beast-like thumbnails. And I think the only way to do that is through Adobe Photoshop, because I'm not able to do it well, I can use PowerPoint. Right now, I only use PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah, that's real limited. There's a lot of free photo tools. And because I've used Adobe for so long, I haven't really needed to go out into some of those. But what's the one? Canva's real popular. I think that even has some tools for removing backgrounds and stuff. So you can get that standalone image with the solid color background. But that's the problem is, for me, I know how to do all that stuff in the tools I have that I already have. So I don't have much of an incentive to go and learn Canva, for instance.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of that stuff out there, and there's I mean, I'm sure there's tons of tutorials on any of that stuff, and people are like, oh yeah, I'm just using the free version of Canva or this other, there's a whole suite of free tools that are available, that you can get incredible results just working on your phone. That's not my area of expertise, but it's all out there for sure.
Yeah. So, I think about, I would like to use more stuff. What I really want to do is I want to take this podcast and go from how we're talking now, and then instead of it going black after 20 minutes, it would then transition to animations. So an animated you and I sitting here talking with the elk and whatnot. So yeah, that's what I want to do. My buddy said, yeah, you can do this in Adobe Animate and whatnot. So I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't used Animate. I've downloaded it, but I haven't played with that very much yet. There's also, I don't think we're there 100%, but there's a lot of AI tools for image processing. And you got to dial some stuff in. Right now the process is still a little bit more technical, but it's something where if you've got the time to experiment and play around, you can definitely configure styles. There's still, you've seen those AI animations where right now you'll get things where it'll track what's happening but you'll get some weird glitchiness where it'll run, interpret a frame in a different way or in a slightly different style. And so some strange things will happen with it. You definitely go, oh, that's AI. But but there's been, just in the last year for sure. In the last year, you went from generating and processing images, and the quality compared to now wasn't great, to now you can do video, and now there's all these different things. Just the speed that is advancing is incredible. I had started playing around with all that stuff about this time last year, and took a break from it because I hit busy season in the summer, and I came back to it just this fall, and it's like I'm relearning things totally because new tools are in place. Just Midjourney is the real popular one for image generation, and that went from version 1 to, I think they just released version 6, for instance. Just the iteration is so fast.
Yeah, you're right. Do you use Midjourney?
I don't use Midjourney. I use what is it? I use Stable Diffusion.
Yeah, I love Stable Diffusion.
Just the ability to install it locally, and the ability to pick different models and really customize that stuff. That just, for me, that wins. Plus, again, free. We talked about.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have free tools.
Free.
But the customization that you get on that is huge, and I think that's really what makes it a really more powerful. It's harder to get those same quality of images sometimes, but you have so much more granular control, for better or worse.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I love Stable Diffusion. I use it. I got a few that I go in between. So I got Stable Diffusion, which I generally go to for that. Then I got Genmo.ai.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, it's new. I learned about Genmo through a podcast.
Okay.
But it's cool. So like in the intro to this podcast, I have a Genmo generated animation of myself.
Oh, okay.
So I took a picture of myself, and then it made an animation of me kind of like moving, but it turned me into a different person altogether.
Right.
Through the which, whatever. But it's still cool enough for me. And so I use that. So it'll do still frame pictures, or it will just create animations. But you have to really, really prompt the shit out of it in order to get it to create something. The exact, like, make a ballerina twirling in a dress, and then she'll twirl to the left and then to the right and then jump up and down and turn into a pumpkin or whatever. Like, you have to literally type out all that crap.
Right. Give it the full direction.
And it may or may not end up the way you want, but it's still fun to play around with. And then I got a third one that I use, which is fun. My buddy created it by pulling it's basically Stable Diffusion, but he added his own little things to it that you can manipulate, and it's called inked.ai. So
okay.
Luke Dupin out there, inked.ai. It's pretty cool. I think it's a great idea that he's made.
So what is he doing with that exactly, or what's the purpose on that one?
It's free, and he wants to build a cult-like following around it.
Okay.
Pretty much. I think it's a great product. Like, it's free, it's available, and you can use it. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'll have to check those out for sure.
Yeah, what he's doing is he's pulling Stable Diffusion, but he's adding his own mix to it.
Okay. So he's got it's Stable Diffusion back end, but then he's got modified interface.
Yes,
probably,
and this is what makes his different. You can do drawings.
Oh, okay.
And it'll animate the drawings.
Is it the one that it does things live? It's like there's live drawing. I might have seen it.
It's not that
maybe not. I might be thinking of
popular,
something else.
But you can, like, for example, I drew a dick, and it turned it into a little dog standing on two strawberries that was elongated. It's kind of funny. So, like, that's something you can do. Like, so you'll draw, like, you could draw Mickey Mouse and it'll generate a Mickey Mouse image, or
not Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie.
Steamboat Willie, yeah. Yeah, you can do all that stuff, so that's kind of fun. Yeah, so what sort of goals do you got coming up?
Oh, man. So right now I'm really focusing on pushing more of my commercial work. One, as I'm sure you do, I've got a passion for entrepreneurship and small business. So I love working with those people, and I love taking the skills that I have and being able to help other people with them. So because I've got a lot of background in, not just the photos and videos, but marketing and all of that stuff, I like working with people who are like, okay, well, I've got this skill, right? And I decided I'm going to start my own business, but they don't know how to get their story out and how to connect with all the people who want to hire them, and so I love being able to say, hey, I do things that help people find their clients, their customers. So then everyone's happy, right? Your business owner is able to make a living doing the thing that they love, working for themselves, achieving that dream, and they're able to serve their customers who otherwise might have not known that they even existed, and that's always really the hard part, is like, hey, I do this thing, but how do I get people to know that I'm here and do this thing? And so that's really the puzzle that I work on and I try to help people with. And it's really rewarding. That's just, to me, that's a really rewarding thing, that seeing people grow with their companies, and then being able to have long-term relationships. I mean, I have that with wedding clients. There's people who I'm still in contact with. I shot their wedding 5 years ago at this point, right? And we're still in contact, or friends on Facebook, and send them a message on their anniversary. And so, it's stuff like that, but it's not the same as repeat business, where it is nice to say, hey, I've got this long-term business relationship with someone who, I've been helping them grow their company for that amount of time, or whatever. It's a different thing, and it's less stressful on the marketing end, is having recurring customers rather than one-off customers. And that's, unfortunately, it's kind of the downside on weddings, is that you're always trying to market to new people, because all the people who like you already, they're already married. They already hired you, and they're still, following you, promoting your work. They're still fans, but you're always looking for, all right, who's the next couple who I'm going to help, which is that part, the finding more people is always the stressful thing, and you're always kind of locked in that. So, that's my thing this year, is I want to work with more small businesses. So then, there's less of the up and down on the wedding projects, and a little bit more stability, I hope.
Yeah, it can be lucrative if you.
Oh yeah.
If you find the right people and it's the right season.
Oh yeah. I mean, wedding season gets crazy. I can only take on so many projects for myself because, I'm doing all my editing in house, and you can take on more projects if you outsource your editing, but I'm just not ready to let go of that creative control on things, because to me the edit is really where your video comes together. You can outsource a lot of shooting, but the edit's what makes the movie,
Yeah.
And that's in commercial work, it's in making weddings, and it applies all the way up through Hollywood, right? It doesn't matter what you shoot, the edit's going to either bring it together and elevate it, or a bad edit can ruin a whole project, right? So that's an area I do it all, which means that's all that time's on me. So really, I can only take like 2 weddings a month, at max, to really give those clients the amount of time that edit needs. But that still means that I've got time that I can shoot with other companies. And I love doing that. It's, you just meet people, going out to weddings. The process of shooting a wedding, once you're used to how a wedding day flows, and you're just comfortable in that setting, where everything's kind of comes naturally, so you just do the shoot and you don't have to worry about, okay, do I have the right equipment? What are my settings? Just once you hit that certain level of experience where that's all second nature, a wedding day is real fun, because you're with people, they're all happy. This is just one of the best days of someone's life, especially up to that point. It's a huge, huge celebration. And so you just get to be part of that. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so when I shoot with other companies, well, great. I get to do the fun part, and I don't have to worry about the tedious and time consuming part. That's the edit. I'll just pass that part off. So yeah, that's kind of my thing on weddings is, I can only take so many clients on for myself, but I can fill up that time with, shooting with other people, or doing photography as well. I'll shoot with other photographers. It's all a lot of fun. I just love what I do there.
Yeah, well, there is quite a film industry here in Spokane. A lot of people don't realize, I call it the new Hollywood, because a lot of these Californians have moved from Hollywood and they come here.
Yeah.
And they're hanging out in Coeur d'Alene. And they're fucking up our state. But I've noticed that talking to them, so there's this group, it's called the Few Film.
Yeah, I'm in there.
Good, good, with Daniel Schaefer and Sean Springer. They're both great guys. They've been on the podcast. They run that group. Mostly Daniel. It's Daniel's group, but that's a good group to get in with.
Yeah. I've been seeing that. It's I don't do a lot of the creative or narrative projects, because that's also, it's a whole other level. I'm really used to running as a one-man show kind of thing, but I always like keeping track of that stuff, because you never know when there's going to be a project that's going to pop up and you're like, yeah, I got to get involved on that,
Well, Z Nation was a big deal here. Z Nation was filmed here. It was
really?
a Netflix thing.
Wasn't that that was an like sequel kind of thing to World War Z, or am I?
No.
It was
Z
something
Nation
different.
is a totally different thing. You would think it was like World War Z, but no. Z Nation was kind of like a zombie comedy.
Oh, okay.
And it was just one of those things, and that and Daniel Schaefer was talking all about it because he worked with Netflix on it and whatnot, and he was talking about the data. Like, they know every single thumbnail, every single scene has been meticulously data driven.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I believe it.
And so they'll go to the screenwriters, like they go to Daniel and his dad and whatnot, and they're like, all right, here's the script, here's all the keywords, we want you to plug these keywords in the script.
Really?
Yeah. And so like Netflix, like each show, depending on you, the user, it'll obviously show you a different show as to like what to watch next.
Sure.
But it'll also show you a different ending on certain shows that will prompt you to want to be more likely to click on the next one or watch the next thing.
Huh.
Yeah. So the endings are different. The ads are different. It's very, very tailored to you, the user. A lot of data.
I didn't realize that they were getting that sophisticated. I mean, I'm not surprised because they're obviously tracking everything. I just didn't realize that they're pushing that back into the creative side of things like that.
Yeah, it's all data driven. So, it was a good podcast. I'll have to get Daniel on, talk more about that. Or you could talk to him. But yeah, that data driven stuff is what's really cool. So I think, like, how do you use big data for photography? And that's a question I've sat and thought about. And that's kind of the route I've gone now, is the digital paper route. So you could have yourself, you could have whoever. I think where the world of photography and marketing is going is it's going to podcasts and it's going to social media shorts or reels.
Yeah, I think you have an interesting kind of split because in some ways there's some stuff with photography that's going away, just 100%. As far as a market goes, some things are just going to be gone. I think a lot of product photography, for instance, is gonna change entirely. I mean, we are not very far away, and even, I mean, some of it's already able to be done where you say, okay, I have a physical product, I'm going to snap a picture of it with my phone, I'm going to upload it to a service, and it is going to produce, product photos. It's going to generate some images of that shirt on a model. It's going to, I'm just going to throw in some information about my brand and what I want, and it's going to come back with a whole set of different product photos that I can use on my website, I can use on my social media. That stuff's already here, right? It's not the best, and so the people who are using it are generally using it in a more of a budget way, right? But we are not far away from companies that currently have the budget for an actual photographer to take pictures in the physical space, from just being like, no, why do we need to spend that money on a photographer and then license those images when we can get fantastic results with these AI tools, right? So, I mean, I think probably, I don't want to throw a percentage on here because I'm just making it up, but still probably get 70%, definitely over half of that space is going to be completely handled by AI and people using their phones. But at the same time, there are still going to be brands that want a higher end image, and so they're going to pay a photographer for it. Photography as an industry is heavily saturated right now, because, you know, if you've got a few $1,000s to spend on a good camera and some lenses, you can take a decent picture, right? But also, you know, you have a new phone. I mean, Apple is spending a ton of money developing the phone, or, you know, developing the cameras on their phones and having really great results. I mean, you can get a raw image from your phone now. That wasn't the case a couple of years ago, but now I can take a picture with a phone and I get a raw image file, and so I can pull that into Photoshop and I have all that same control that I've got from my DSLR, right? And even an expensive phone, you know, top of the line expensive phone is still cheaper than, you know, a professional grade camera, right? So that's an area that's definitely going to be changing, and a lot of people are going to be doing a lot of that stuff themselves. A lot of people already are. A lot of people say, well, the camera on my phone is great. I'm going to take my product pictures myself. The difference is people who are going that route, you know, they don't understand lighting. They don't understand composition. There's a lot of these different things that a professional is aware of, right? And it's the stuff that takes an image from, hey, this is pretty good, to this is excellent, right? And that knowledge gap is surprisingly big sometimes. Yeah. But a lot of people are fine with just pretty good. You know, they're like, oh, I don't need a incredible photo. Now, people who want incredible photos are still going to go to a professional. But I think that there's a lot of people who have gaps in their skill sets, and they're going to get pushed down to the market. Just the people who are focusing on volume and just, oh, you know, I can crank this out and I'm the low budget person, you know, it's just going to get harder, because now those people, instead of competing with other photographers, they're competing with AI, you know, and you can't beat it, you know. Even if you say, well, I charge $50 to do your product photos for an hour session, right? Okay. But that same company can pay a subscription fee of 10, 20, 30 bucks for a whole month, and they generate as much images as they want for all of their products. And, you know, the solution isn't to be cheaper. You know, the solution to that is to elevate your skills and provide a better product and a better experience, better service. That's my take on it. But I think that photography in particular is just going to change in a lot of ways. You know, being able to Photoshop people in different places, I mean, that's becoming a thing that anyone can do, again, on their phone. You say, here's a picture of me. I want, you know, make this picture of me to be somewhere else. I want to be on a beach and clean my skin up a little bit, right? And we're almost there. I mean, we're sort of there already with some of the tools. You know, we talked about some of that just earlier, but we're almost to the point where that's, you know, a few clicks on your phone, right? And you know, the creative industry in general, you know, has to adapt to that. I think there's a lot of industries where we're just starting to see the tip of the disruption on all of that. And it's going to be scary.
Yeah.
And a lot of jobs, I think, are going to change. Some things are just going to go away entirely, but I think it also is going to free up a lot of the tedious stuff. You know, there's a lot of opportunity at the same time. You know, if as a photographer, again, if you don't have to edit a whole gallery of photos because you can batch all of those out to an AI service, which is already the case. A ton of people are using AI services for editing. You know, you can upload a bunch of your photos, the before and after your edits, and there's services that'll analyze it and then say, okay, this is how you like your stuff to look. And now you can just do whole galleries, and it'll go through and it'll analyze ones that aren't very good and say, okay, I'm skipping these ones because you missed focus on it or whatever. And it'll go and edit all the rest, and you get a full gallery back in an hour, you know? And now that's all of a sudden you can take a full gallery of wedding photos and have it back to your client the next day. You know, I mean, that's huge. We're talking hours of work.
Yeah, I remember
to do manually.
It used to be like you'd get a CD.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you could say, oh well, that's photographers are going to lose their jobs. No, because a good photographer, you know, again, weddings are really the area where I have the most expertise on all this stuff. A good wedding photographer isn't just taking photos of a couple and taking photos of the wedding day. Your wedding photographer is also kind of a guide through your day, right? Most of the time, most people who are getting married, it's their first time getting married. And a lot of people are getting married and they've never, you know, they've attended a handful of weddings in their life. They've never been a part of a wedding, right? And so if you haven't even been part of a wedding party, you don't know anything that happens before the ceremony. And there's tons of stuff going on, right? I mean, that's a huge chunk of the day is the getting ready and all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is that your photographer knows all of that stuff because they are behind the scenes on weddings, you know, from start to finish.
Yeah, my dad paid
so
like
much.
$3,000 for my sister's photographer.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, they're great photos.
But that's when you're paying $3,000 or more for a photographer, you're not just paying because of the photos. You're paying for the expertise that they provide on the wedding day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the customer service that comes along with that, all of that expertise. And so if you are outsourcing your edits to AI, you're freeing up time to better focus on your clients, provide better service, right? And you can take on more people, you can help more people. So that's a good example of an area where there's a ton of benefit there because you're taking away, you know, some people still want to edit their photos themselves, right? We talked about that before with editing, and you really want to have that creative control still. But other people, they say, oh, I hate editing. It's the worst part of the job. Like, oh, I can outsource this, you know, to this software, and it'll do things how I want, and I can still go back in and I still have that, you know, creative control. It's a game changer for a lot of people. And similarly with, I mean, we're seeing disruption even in the medical field. I think it's going to be longer before that is able to really be rolled out entirely, because there's going to be pushback from a lot more regulation, right? But that's an area where we're seeing AI diagnostics that are more accurate than they have a higher percentage of accuracy than a lot of doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And so having doctors have that tool is going to make them faster, more efficient, have better results. And you can say, well, I mean, if we've got these diagnostic tools that are better than a doctor, why do we need doctors? Well, you need doctors for all of the soft stuff, but they still need to have all that knowledge. They still need to be able to go in and look at that data and say, okay, yeah, I see what's going on here. And that lets them be the professional, the expert, and focus on those parts rather than saying, okay, I'm going to go through this list of symptoms and, the tedious part. It outsources some of that tedious part. So it's an area where jobs are going to be disrupted. We're going to see, whole industries going away.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been saying for a little bit, I think in the next 10, 20 years, rideshare services, I think, are going to be replaced by self-driving cars. I think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The Lyft and Uber right now, they outsource it to people with their own cars.
Mm-hmm.
But I think those companies are going to invest very heavily in self-driving vehicles when they become more what's it called, as they become more
reliable and accurate, and it's more accepted. I'd like to see the day where I could just tell the car to go pick up the kids.
Like that's not even not that far ago, not that long ago, it was absolute science fiction, that idea, right? But that is 100% a reality. It's not just a reality, it's inevitable at this point. And I think those are some industries that those jobs are just going to go away. I think trucking is going to go away. I've talked to truckers who are like, no, a robot won't be able to do X, Y, Z. A robot's not going to be able to do this drive through a snowy mountain or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think a truck that has AI integration and a strong data connection is going to be more aware of road conditions. It's going to be, that truck is going to have a whole bunch of different sensors on it. And so it's going to be a lot more aware of everything with the road condition, with everything that's going around it. It's not going to be distracted at all by anything ever. And it's going to be able to communicate with other trucks and other cars. I think that's another thing is...
I like that.
Yeah.
Like, if I know I could sit down in a vehicle and just type and do something more productive besides drive, that'd be cool. Now, the biggest pushback I have when it comes to the electric vehicles, it's the electric vehicles I have an issue with, because not self-driving. Everybody's and Tesla's really trying to push it off onto self-driving. But I did this blog article, I did a YouTube video on it, but I discovered through Tesla's data, because they report their death data, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. They aren't reporting everything.
Right.
There's all sorts of people who are bringing in other cases. And I personally know about a Tesla. And how I first got involved in this is because it's like, oh, okay, I have a podcast. And sometimes people think of me as like an independent journalist, and I kind of am.
Sure.
And so this family friends of mine, they live out in Fairfield, Washington. A Tesla driver drove off the road, smashed into a tree. Tesla exploded, lit on fire.
The lithium batteries.
The lithium, the cobalt, the palladium, all this toxic chemical carcinogenic shit. And it covered their property. And and it turned into this mess. Like the EPA was like, well, EPA ended up footing the bill. The government ended up footing the bill in the end. But at first, it was an issue between the driver's insurance was like, yeah, we're not paying for that. We're only paying for X.
Right.
And then, oh, you still got to clean all this toxic shit off your land. Oh, you need to get it off before the rain comes and pushes it in. So they're on a timeline. And then their insurance, the car driver's insurance, kept pressuring the owners, the McWhinnies, to use their homeowners insurance.
Right.
And I'm like, no. And the homeowners insurance, like, no, we ain't going to cover that. It's only going to cover so much. Like, so think about if an oil tanker fell off the road and spilled oil in your yard, someone's going to have to deal with it. And this is literally the case with every single one of these. They can't put them out when they're burning.
Right.
Because they can't burn it out. They got to just let it burn. And the toxic carcinogens get everywhere and in the soil. So they had to remove certain level of topsoil. They had to cut down all the trees that were there in that area. And it's a huge mess. And then they have to take the EPA dirt, the dirty dirt.
Right.
And the only place that'll take the dirty dirt is in Beaverton, Oregon.
Oh.
Even though there's places here that are licensed to take it, they still won't take it because it's new crazy shit and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with the cobalt and the lithium. So they
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. No, people don't think of these things, right? And so the McWhinnies got to me and they're like, we don't know what to do, blah, 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 blah. No one's listening to us. So I started contacting, and I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people in the town of Fairfield who were pissed off at what was going on. And they were contacting the Spokesman Review. And then finally the Spokesman Review sent a reporter up there, and she was really good. She wrote it better than I could have written it. But that prompted me to investigate Tesla explosions a little bit more. So I found this data set. So Tesla publishes the data sets of their deaths, right? They try to skew it through the columns that they make to make it look like it was like an autopilot issue. But the real issue is in the column, the accident description column. In the description column, I went through every single row and found the words fire and its synonyms. So 14.5% of Tesla deaths result in fire or its synonyms. So when you puncture that Tesla battery, it's funny. Like they show Elon Musk and people shooting up the Tesla trucks. Mm-hmm. But if you were to flip the Tesla truck and shoot the damn battery, it's going to create thermal runaway.
Right.
And that's why Tesla doesn't allow people to work on it. You have to send it to them. And if you think about it like objectively, and so I did a bigger study where I took the national average. So I took this national accidents data set, which was part of this bigger study that had to do with trying to like predict accidents with like weather features and shit. Like nothing at all with EVs. And I mined through that because they had a description column. I'm looking for fire and its synonyms.
Sure.
And it is so in a combustion engine, your likelihood of dying a fiery death is 30 out of 10,000 deaths.
Okay.
This is really low.
Yeah.
Right? In a Tesla, out of every 1,000 deaths, 145 will involve fire.
Wow.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Dude, this is why Ford had to recall all their shit. All the other companies that are trying to get into the EV game started recalling their shit because they had these issues. Think about, and like people don't think about this objectively, and I didn't think about it until I saw the overwhelming data. I'm like, oh shit, that's right. These hoverboards fucking light on fire in the houses. Your cell phones catch fire. Like, and so you're taking this car, this fucking dirty bomb, and you're going down the road and you're smashing it into something.
Right.
And these people, I'm sure, like they're getting rear-ended, getting stuck in a crumple zone. They can't get out of their car and their car light's on fire.
Yeah.
That'd be some shit.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's things people don't think about. And I've brought this up to some Tesla drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing they can say is, you're wrong.
I mean, but like you said,
That's all they can say.
the data's there.
That's all they can say. It's a
it.
it's a cult. They have put because so much money is going to this identity every month that they think that they're this person. So every time I see a Tesla, because there's a guy who parks here, and I've seen like houses that catch on fire because of Teslas. There was this whole ship of EVs carrying electric cars across the Atlantic, and that lit on fire and was burning for like ever in July. Yeah, so, but it's things people don't think about.
Yeah,
but
I hadn't thought about that at all. It makes total sense. The weight on those batteries, I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's a lot. I mean, your cell phone is a very small battery, right? But to run a car like that, you have multiple large lithium batteries. And so if you've got a problem with those, that's a big fire that you're talking about with a lot of fuel for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about, I don't think very many people at all think about that actual present danger that's with those.
Yeah, they don't think about what they don't think about.
Yeah.
They don't realize, like in the reporter that covered the story from the Spokesman Review, she even brought up the fact that here in Spokane and Lowe's, electric leaf blower caught fire.
In the store?
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, if you wanted to, like, I think it would be a cool YouTube video, but if somebody was like, today I'm going to take a Tesla and shoot it and make it blow up just to demonstrate thermal runaway.
Yeah.
Or you could get...
Well, it's like, when we were kids, you'd see, how many movies do you have a car that would get shot and then the car blows up, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't actually happen.
No, it doesn't.
Like, I mean, you can shoot a gas tank a whole bunch and the possibility of getting that spark that's going to ignite that gasoline and have it engulf in a big ball of flame is incredibly low.
Yeah, that's true. And I saw that in Iraq because we'd shoot up cars all the time. And they wouldn't blow up.
They don't blow up,
no.
Right? But, with an EV, it sounds like there's actually much higher possibility that could happen.
It seems to be the case.
Yeah, that's
what the data seems to suggest. And so every time I drive around and I see a Tesla driving, I think of that shit. And yeah, so it's crazy. And now people are trying to push it for legislation. Mm-hmm. We all got to drive EVs. Right. And here's what I tell people. If that's how bad Tesla is, how much Ford's worse going to be?
Right.
How much worse Ford's going to
be like, and Chevrolet.
And they're already getting recalled. A lot of their EVs that they've brought out have already been recalled, and people don't talk about it. And another thing I follow is the stock market on it, and a lot of Tesla's tanking. And it just seems to be more, and maybe that's because my news feed is skewed. Because I've been typing it in and reporting on this shit that it only gives me Tesla-related negative shit. It doesn't give me good Tesla stuff. Though I'm happy about SpaceX. I think SpaceX is cool, like with Elon Musk, what he's doing. But to go back, I guess you brought up a point. It's like, the question is, how do you redefine your job? And I think that, I think now I would consider you a video marketer.
Somewhat.
Or a
I would
film
say
marketer.
The way that I've started to really frame it is I'm a visual storyteller. And that incorporates all the things I do. So regardless of if I'm telling a story of a couple with their wedding day, or I'm telling the story of a company with how it was formed or the product that they make or how they help people. Everything I'm doing is telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that with whatever tool I have available to me. It's often video, sometimes it's photo, but I started doing websites for people again. So that's
Cool.
another
talk about
visual
that.
way. Oh man.
So how'd you get into the website? So you're definitely much more of a digital marketer if you're already into website creation.
Yeah. It's hard because to be an expert, you can't say, hey, I do all of these things, because then people are like, well, you do way too many things. I can't keep track of that. And it's telling someone all of the things you do becomes a whole conversation. People don't have the time or the attention span for that. They want to say, okay, this is Nate. Nate does X, right?
Yeah.
And I would rather say, hey, here's this pretty broad thing, but it gives you an idea, and then we can talk, and people say, do you do this other thing too? I know you do video. Do you do photo? Yeah, I do photo.
Can you make thumbnails?
Can you make thumbnails? I sure can. So I mean, that's my answer on almost everything. People are like, oh, what about this thing? Yeah, that's easy. There's all kinds of things that just fall under what I do, but people want to have a pretty narrow view of what someone does. And I think we're in a time where you sort of have to be diverse, but then you also have to be deep at the same time. It's and it's hard to balance that stuff. But as far as websites, I got into using WordPress back in 2012. I was working for a general contractor. We did home remodels, repair, remediation. So we did, when people would have flooding in their home, we do the tear out and dry out and build it back, all of that stuff. And we had a website guy who we were working with, and I was doing data entry using QuickBooks to do job costing and stuff. That's what I was hired on to do, but I had this other skill set, and we knew, someone in the office to help out with the website. So I learned how to use WordPress, started learning some real basic stuff. I don't want to, I know enough about SEO to work with SEO people, and I know basic stuff. So I can really go and say, hey, I can identify a few problems, and I've got a team of people who I work with to outsource the heavy lifting to, right? But I know enough that I can talk to those people like, okay, we need to do this thing, we got to do this thing, we got to do this thing. We need more backlinks for this site. These are the keywords that we're trying to rank for. So I can do keyword research and kind of diagnosing the issues, and then I bring in specialists to handle the actual fixing of stuff. But then that way, on that stuff, I'm kind of a go-between, where someone's like, well, I don't know what's going on with my website. I'm not having a lot of luck with it. And I can say, okay, I can diagnose these things, and then my team will come in and they'll take care of fixing the problem, because there's some areas where it's better to just know who an expert is rather than spending the time and becoming an expert yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's an area that I just don't have the time to be an expert, because I'm doing all these other things, right? So yeah, back then I started learning that stuff, kind of kept up with it, built a few websites for some different companies, and then fast forward a little bit, and then I was working at the city of Sierra Vista, and so I just kind of stopped doing that, and then I got really busy with video. So I took a break. We're probably talking 6-7 years where I just really wasn't doing any of that, and came back out here. Well, actually a little before then, I was like, I had to build websites for myself. I was like, okay, well, I need a website for my wedding work. I need a separate website for my commercial work and a separate website for my photography. And I was like, oh, it's been a while since I built a website. Yeah, it's all right. I'll do it. So I had to brush up on some things, but, went in, built my websites, and I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Learned some new tools, tightened up my process a lot on how quickly I can build a website now. And everything I do is through WordPress. So it's nothing that I do is something that you can't go, and if you want to spend the time, you can do some research on YouTube and read articles and teach yourself, which is the incredible thing about the time we live in, right? But a lot of people don't have time to teach themselves all those things. I've got a list of things that I'm trying to learn, but I can only learn so much at a time, right? And I think that applies for a lot of people. So it's just an area where I've taken the time to learn that skill set, and I can help people with it. So that was an area where I realized, okay, well, if I'm doing photos and videos for people, for their companies, I can also do websites for people. I can help them with their ads. I can, so it's one of the problems I found, that people will know that they need a video for their company. And they'll hire me, they'll do the video, and then nothing happens with it. They get a lot of traction. They put it up on their Facebook, and it gets tons of traction, right? Tons of views, all these people commenting on it, interacting, and they don't have any kind of follow-up, and it's not part of a plan. And so that video doesn't translate to money in their business. And that was a thing that I was seeing with a lot of companies that I've worked with. And, going back to what we talked about before, where I do this because I want to help people tell their stories. And through that, I want to provide value to my clients. And so what I'm seeing there is they're not really getting a good ROI. They're getting a video, they're getting some traction, but then it kind of fizzles out, right? And so I was like, well, I'm working with people who don't understand marketing, and they don't understand that this is only valuable if it's part of an intentional campaign. So then I realized that for that stuff, I really need to go a little bit broader. And I can't just say, hey, I offer video to your company. It's got to be, all right, I've got to sit down with you, and we got to talk about what your marketing goals are. We got to talk about what you're doing, how you want to use this video, because I would rather tell someone, hey, I can't work with you. I know you want a video, but you're not ready for a video yet. You got to do some other stuff. This isn't going to be a good fit. It's going to be a waste of your money. I'd rather do that and then work with them when they're ready and when it's going to be profitable for them, rather than take on that client and take their money and then they don't ever want to do video again. Because they didn't see a benefit. I mean, how many times have you talked to someone who's like, well, yeah, I ran a print ad in whatever, and I didn't see any business from it, so I don't run ads anymore. I ran a Facebook ad campaign for 2 weeks for my business. Yeah, we got some more likes, but I didn't get any sales from it, so I don't run online ads anymore, right? And people do that, but they're not being educated on a proper scope, right? And they're not necessarily knowing what they should be looking for, what their actual goals are. I mean, we always say, okay, well, I'm a business owner, I want more sales, right? But can you do that with one ad campaign? And even if you are going to do that with one ad campaign, are you setting up your ad campaign in a way that's going to get more sales? Are you doing it in that sort of way? Or are you set up so that you can capitalize on that? If you're running a digital ad campaign and you're going to get people going to your site, but there's no way for people to buy from you or set up an appointment or whatever it is. If your site isn't set up to convert sales, then your ad campaign isn't going to do as well. You're going to say, okay, well, come to my store. All right, well, why? So it's just about, you've got to have all these things that reduce friction for your customers. And that was kind of my thing, is I just realized that the video is part of a bigger picture. And so I have to also be able to see that bigger picture and help my clients with that bigger picture. And so that meant that I had to start doing websites again, and just all these other things so that they can get the most benefit from those core services that I was already providing.
Yeah, I find you nailed it. You nailed some reoccurring themes that I tell people all the time. So when most marketers, most businesses track the wrong metrics.
Yes.
And like I told Jeremy of the Wise Shopper, he sends out the mailers, right? And so people get the coupon books and they go through it. He's like, but I have no way to track sales. Right. They don't tell me sales. I'm like, yeah, I know, but there is a thing you can track: domain authority. It's return on domain authority. They could say, I don't have sales. I'm like, I know, but you have a brand. And if your domain authority increased in the time that I started the marketing campaign, it usually takes about 3 months for Google to update. Yeah. That's a provable metric because they weren't tracking it to begin with. So if you can track it for them, you're adding value. It's a value adding proposition.
Right.
And then you are showing, look, your domain authority increased. This drove traffic to your website, or it caused people to go to the Google search bar and type in your brand. And if people even go to Google Maps and go to the store, that increases their domain authority.
Right.
All those things, that it all factors in like an accounting formula back into their domain authority. So that's the metric that you should track. And you can track that for free on aatrefs.com and or Moz. And so, yeah, it's your real estate. It's your digital real estate price.
I had never thought about using that as a way to.
That's the only way I do it
on print ads.
Yeah, it's the only way you can do it for anything. Like it is measure your domain authority. It's how I measure it on everything. Like for the backlinks from the YouTube channels help a lot if somebody has a good YouTube channel. So if you make a killer fucking, like for example, I the other day I ripped off a squirrel video. Right. Okay. So there's a dancing squirrel and I added some trendy music to it. Got 10,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really fucking happy about that. And my subscriber base is small, like 300, right? But that 10,000 views, because of the backlink going from my channel to my website, is like a little power generator. It's ranking power, just generating ranking power back to my website. So if you make shorts and match it with search intent and drop it on their YouTube channels, that'll help. Google business profile is huge, man. You should definitely set up one yourself. I have my dad for his cabinet business. He was paying these charlatans like $200 a month to have this website for him that he had no domain authority over because it was on their platform. And he wasn't getting no return. I was like, just stop paying for it. And that's one thing that like I help out businesses with is they pay for all this shit. And I'm like, stop paying for that. Stop paying for that. Stop paying for that.
So this is a thing I saw. We got a couple of things that I've seen working with different small businesses. One, I remember, I think it was Yellow Book. started offering websites, right? And they're like, oh, it's a free website. You just pay for hosting and it's part of your, advertising package, right? And they would tell you a whole bunch of things that they're doing, or you'd see this website and you're like, well, what's going on with this stuff that looks all janky? And they're like, oh, it's for SEO, right? And they just like say this stuff and they throw out words. And it's like, no, what they've really done is you've told them the domain name that you want and they bought it and now they own it. And they own your domain name. And so when you want to do something else, you won't get that domain name. They will keep it. They own
all your ranking.
They own anything. So anything that actually improves the value of that domain name, these companies are holding it, right? And
there's SEO firms that do that same shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this was when I talked about working with that contracting company. I ran into some of this stuff with their web guy. I realized. I started asking a few questions. I asked my boss, well, oh, hey, what about this thing or this other thing? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Ask him about it. And this guy would get like real dodgy when I started asking real questions, right? So it was things like, hey, who owns that domain name that we just got? We're spinning up a new site for, this, we were spinning up a new site just for the water damage repair and stuff. And he was like, because he'd been like, oh yeah, okay, we'll use this domain. I'll take care of that for you. Well, yeah, he took care of it, but then he was like, well, I own it. Once I started asking him about it, he was like, well, yeah, I registered it. And,
and he's taking the backlink from that site to his site because they're embedding the backlinks, and you can find it just by checking the backlinks in the backlink checker.
Exactly.
And I saw one guy who was number one in SEO here, and then I researched him, and he was on a private Ukrainian blog network, and he got discovered by Google. But I find us all the time. They're doing those shady shit things.
Oh, yeah.
These marketing companies, they're building the website and then, if I built the website, I would ask for a backlink to mine.
Some of them are doing it.
Owning it.
Some are doing, because it's pretty common where you'll see, websites built by whoever, and they'll put a little link on it in the bottom. And I think that's fine. As far as my policy is, if you're upfront with it, and you could say, hey, this is valuable for me for my marketing and everything, and if you don't want it, I'll charge you a little bit for it. I'm keeping the cost down by improving my marketing with this way, whatever. It's just like with I've done wedding clients who are like, hey, we don't want any of our footage used. We're really private, whatever. And so you say, okay, cool. We'll do an NDA, and none of your footage will be used for marketing, and I won't use your names or anything, right? But I say, hey, I only shoot so many weddings a year, and so that's cutting into the material that I have that I can use for marketing, that I can use for promoting my work, and so I do charge a fee for that, right? And that's pretty common in the more luxury space where you're shooting people who maybe have some name recognition. They'll say, hey, you do an NDA, because it's a lot more common in the more expensive space. But you do a similar thing with websites. But I think it's important to be upfront. You say, hey, I'm doing this, and it really helps me out. And, when people see this website and they say, oh, this is a really good website, and they scroll down to the bottom and they see, this is who did it, right? But that's totally different from surreptitiously hiding a backlink somewhere,
Yeah, they'll hide it in a blog. Yeah. They'll hide it in in one of the they'll hide it. Yeah. And you can find it.
Yeah. And it's sad that there's so many people just doing these really, really shady things. And it's like, in some ways, is hiding backlinks really hurting anyone? Maybe not. You know, you can make your own justifications for it, right? But doing things like that where you're not telling your client what's going on is, to me, it's just a sign of bigger problems, right? If you are someone who does that and you can justify, well, you know, no one's getting hurt, it may be true, but how many things do you justify that are shady, and your justification is, well, it doesn't hurt anyone, right? I don't like that. I don't like doing business that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of dicey stuff, and a lot of these companies will give you a really good deal, and then they own the domain, or the downside on, you know, Wix and Squarespace are really popular. I know tons of people who have great sites with them. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're easy to use, and you can, you know, build out a really pretty site. But the downside is, most of the time, they'll say, oh, you get a free domain. Well, yeah, you get a free domain that you've hired that you've got through them. And again, you decide you're not using their site anymore, you lose that domain, and they're going to hang on to it. So you're going to lose everything. If you decide you don't want to host with them anymore, all your content is gone. You don't own that site. You never own that site. You're renting your website. And that is the number one thing that really, with all of this, the thing that really pushed me with websites, that got me like, oh, hey, was when I build a site, my client owns that site. You know, I offer hosting, and so I say, hey, you know, host with me. It really helps me out, right? But if they say, I don't want to do business with you anymore, Nate, I say, okay, here's all the files. They're packaged up. I transfer the domain to you. You know, this is all yours. This is your content, right? I put it together for you, but this is your product. And not everyone works that way. And a lot of people, I mean, a lot of these companies do the opposite of that. It's their entire business model. And so you think, oh, well, I mean, it's only $25 a month. That's great. You know, $25 a month it's not a lot of money, but then what happens when you want more than 5 pages on your website, right? Oh, well, they're going to do an upcharge on that. Oh, but it's only $5 a month though, right? You know, and they do all these things. You're like, oh, it's another $2. It's another $5, another $10 here. And next thing you know, you're not paying $25 a month. You're paying like $60 a month for your website that you never own, you know? And that's like what your dad was, or what you were having with your dad, where it's like he's paying $200 a month, and some of it's for services he's not using, or has no way of really telling if that service is actually being provided. And I've seen some of that stuff too. Just these companies are like, I mean, yeah, there was a place, I worked for a law office, and my boss was paying $900 a month for SEO services on his website, on a website that was never updated. I mean, as far as I could tell, nothing was done on it. And I asked him, I was like, okay, you know, what are they doing that you're paying $900 a month for? And he's like, SEO.
Yeah,
Nothing.
the attorneys are the
Nothing.
biggest ones
Nothing.
that get conned in
Yeah,
this shit.
yeah.
A
Well,
lot of people, and it's
because you
dentist
know you
office
need
and
it,
shit.
right? You know you need it, and you know how important it is. And so someone can come in and just say, oh, well, you know you need this. Like, this is, you know, and they can say, oh, here's all these problems, right? I'll fix these problems. And a lot of times they're just kind of giving you the impression that they're fixing problems, and they're really not, you know. And you don't know what you're getting paid for. It's like going to a doctor, and a doctor says, okay, well, here's all these problems. You're like, oh, I didn't know I had high blood pressure, right? And they say, it's okay, take these pills, right? But if you have no way of actually knowing that you have high blood pressure, you know, I'm not saying doctors are doing this, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, imagine going, and you know that your health is important, right? And so you go to someone who you think is an expert and they tell you, here's this list of problems, buy this thing from me and it's going to fix it and you're going to be okay. And what if you didn't even have that problem in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or even worse, you do have that problem and you think it's being fixed because you trust this person and they're giving you sugar pills.
Just quackery.
Right.
Yeah, it's
right.
charlatanism
Yes.
is what it is.
Yes.
There's a lot of fucking charlatans in the world of SEO and marketing.
Yeah.
And my first question, usually, like, let's say if because I'm skewed in this way, but I always just go back to education. Usually I just ask them, like, what's your highest level of education? What is your degree in? And then I go like, well, what? And then there's some things in life that, like in the tech world, there's not a lot of data scientists, or there's not that many. And there's a lot of amateurs that want to be. And there is people who can perform and who can't. And the people who can perform usually have a list of clients that they've had in the past, and they love to brag about the current ones. and usually if I ask somebody, and I've even had straight fucking charlatans on this podcast, like claiming they're SEO people that they're not at all, or they take some course and they think that they're the shit because they took a course, but you only know that person's skewed view of it. But,
right.
But I generally
so
go
diverse, you know, like the skills involved with all that. It's just such a wide range. Like you say, oh, well, SEO, like, well, what kind of SEO are we talking about? Because there's so many specializations within search engine optimization. You know, are we talking about Google Places listings? Are we talking about Google ranking? Are we talking about page ranking? Are we talking about, you know, on-page SEO versus off-page SEO methods? You know, or are we talking about ranking on Bing? I mean, you know, all of these things, there's a lot of stuff that overlaps, you know, and if you're following best practices, it's gonna all kind of work in your favor, and you know you'll build up that way. But there's all these areas that people specialize in because just that one section of it is so deep potentially. And so like you said, if you take one course, okay, well, you learned this one process from one person's data or info set. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. There is a lot to know. I feel that my knowledge of data science and machine learning has definitely enhanced that. Once I learned how the machines see the world, then that totally changed everything in SEO. Like, oh, now I totally get it as to what I got to do. Yeah, but yeah, so where can people find you?
Yeah, so I am notoriously bad at social media, admittedly, but my website for all of my business related stuff is wisemedia.co.
Okay.
And it's spelled like my last name, so WEISE. And then the easy one to remember is my wedding site is letsjustsayyes.com.
Okay, letsjustsayyes.com. That's easy.
Yeah, it's an easy one. I don't know. I might do some kind of rebrand on my business side of things and do something a little catchier. But
okay.
Yeah, I went real catchy with the wedding stuff.
Okay, yeah, and I'll help you out with that. So let's see here. Any book recommendations?
Oh, okay. Book recommendations. Some favorites of mine are definitely the E-Myth Revised, and I think Traction by Gino Wickman. Those are both really good ones on processes and kind of just being organized with your entrepreneurship, which is historically not my strong point.
Well, good. Well, you're out there, you're getting after it. And that's the important part, and you're living your dream. So, well, everybody, that was Nate. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. Be sure to like, subscribe, smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Bye.